Let's be honest, if there's going to be a clutch moment, it's probably going to come from someone who's playing the Wylder. Now, there's a reason for that. There's a reason why a lot of the clutch moments come from the Wylder players. And that's mostly because the best players in these games with the best fundamentals of understanding, like From Software games, they tend to pick the Wylder. Now, there's a reason for that, mostly because of the versatility that the Wylder has. His movement mechanics, the way that he can pretty much use any weapon in the game. A lot of that stuff comes from the Wylder just being, overall, a really well-balanced character. Now, a lot of people have asked me previously to drop the build that I use for the Wylder a lot. So I'm going to drop that build today, and it never really changes because the Wylder is fairly simple to build and he never needs anything complicated. Obviously you can build him in a complicated way, you can turn him into a faith user, there's stuff like that, but in my opinion the Wylder never really needs anything complicated to make him, in my opinion, the most important player in a team. Now, if you was to pick a meta team, it would probably consist of an Iron Eye, Duchess or a Recluse, and then some form of tank. Now, that role as the tank is to essentially just draw the aggro and allow your damage outputters to do the damage. So if you've got like a Recluse, essentially she's going to use a Shattering Crystal. Obviously you want your Iron Eye to mark for the extra 10%, and then you want a tank to draw the aggro to allow your big hitters to hit big numbers. So that is your job. Now, why the Wylder and not the Raider, Guardian, or even the Executor? Mostly because the Wylder's ultimate ability, but also his grappling hook, it just allows him to move around quickly. Obviously the ultimate ability goes without saying, it's a massive explosion which will do 2 bars revive. Most of the time if you've got a decent weapon with the Wylder, it's 2 bars from the ultimate, and then you get like an R2 from whatever weapon you're using, and you've brought back someone from 3 bars fairly quickly. The reason why it's not Raider is because his moveset with his default weapons is really slow. He's always going to be low on stamina, and then the Guardian obviously is a very good choice, but his dodge is just too awful to even think about having him as the main tank in the team. So that's why the Wylder just outclasses every other quote-unquote tank. Now for me, the RNG gods have been on my side, and I have essentially been given a perfect set of relics for the Wylder. So I'm going to go through them and I'm going to explain each one of them and what they do, and then I'm going to give you some tips on how you can be a more helpful Wylder, because let's be honest, there are some Wylders that you'll play with that are 0 help throughout the whole run. Their builds aren't doing any damage, they're not really drawing aggro, so yeah, there obviously are some Wylders that aren't doing the job. But if you're a proper Wylder main, I guess we'll call it, even though I hate that word, you will know exactly how to play the Wylder, and there are some things that you can do to make your build or your playing as the Wylder even better. So let's get into it. First of all, there's a misconception that the Wylder isn't very good at putting out damage. That is a misconception. As long as you build him correctly, you can do insane damage. Mostly because you're going to be the character that is constantly aggressing the enemy, constantly drawing the aggro, and also you get to utilize all weapons. Obviously, fists are going to be your best weapon for the Wylder. They're also going to be your best weapon for any other strength character, and that's undeniable, mostly because the R2s do insane stance damage. They're fast, they don't take much stamina, and they still do pretty decent damage. If you're fighting someone who's, you know, susceptible to stats procs, you can obviously use things like your Starfists, which are going to bleed. You get the Poison Claws, I forget the name of them, but you get my gist. Fists are going to be your best weapon, so if you're the Wylder and you find some fists, pick them up and use them. As for the misconception of the damage, now there are 2 ways you can fix this. First of all, always pick the Evergel and the Night Invader relic over his personal relics. There isn't a edge that the personal relic's going to give you over the Night Invader and the Evergel. Even if you only hit like 2 Evergels and 1 Night Invader, it's still going to be more of a damage boost than all of his personal relics combined. The only one that is questionable, which you should be using, is the +1 for his grappling hook. Now obviously it's RNG dependent, but if you can, try and find a relic, a Night Invader or an Evergel that at least has defeating enemies fills up the art gauge, because that is really important for someone like the Wylder. Now if you've been playing this game for long enough, you've probably been saved by John Nightreign's ultimate ability more times than you can count. It's not to say it's the best ultimate ability, because the Bird's ult will revive you quicker than the John Nightreign's ultimate ability. It will also heal you, and then obviously you got the Revenants, which will bring you back to life. Doesn't matter how many bars down you are. So, is it the best ultimate ability? No. Is it the most useful in all different types of scenarios? I would probably say yes. So yeah, defeating enemies fills up the art gauge. It's really important to have on. And also, if you can fit it on your deep relics, defeating the enemies fills up the arc gauge +1. Now, if you can, try and fit all of those that we've mentioned on at least 2 relics. So, you know, the +1, grappling hook, Night Invader, Evergel, and defeating the enemies. Anything else that goes alongside it will be a bonus, but you want to try and fit those on at least 2 relics. And then for me personally, for the 3rd relic, I always use the HP, the Dark Knight of the Fathom, just for the extra HP. But obviously, if you're a god gamer, you don't need HP because we don't need vigor if we don't get hit. So if you don't need the HP, try and fit those relics I've mentioned over the 3 slots that you get. But obviously, if you can fit, you know, all of those over 2 slots and you've got that extra 3rd relic, pick what you want. I always pick vigor, but pick what you want. Now, those are pretty much the base relics covered. You don't really need any more than that. Obviously, the greatsword getting the flame attack after you use the grappling hook, it's a really good personal relic, and it's really good early game, and it does great stance damage. But once you've used it, there's no way to buff it. It doesn't get any stronger. It might be powered up a little bit by like fire attacks. I haven't even tested it. But realistically, there are going to be better weapons for you to use as the Wylder than the greatswords. Now, if I'm using a melee character, this stays the same on every character I use if they're melee. The only difference will be is if I can't fit it on, I need to use something like the Guardian's Wind that gives you the defense negation. I will use that instead of this. But for the Wylder, stack physical attack power up, +4 if you've got them, but you know, +3 will do the job fine. Now, the other important one for Wylder, and it's a must-have, is the grappling hook inflicts blood loss. Realistically, this paired with the +1 personal relic that you get, it gives him the opportunity to just deal damage, especially against low early enemies. It gives you the ability to deal, you know, large amounts of damage from a distance without getting close and have risk of dying. So it is really important. That paired with the +1 personal relic makes it even better. Alongside that, using the grappling hook constantly, when it does the burst damage, it will draw aggro to the Wylder. So you can draw the aggro, pull the enemy to where you want to pull it, so it's away from your teammates or your Duchess or your Ionai, and yeah, it just makes him a lot more useful. Now, the only other one that, as you can see there, which is really useful is, believe it or not, the draw enemy attention whilst guarding. Now, obviously, you would normally use this for the Guardian because he's someone who is going to be in the guard stance a lot to draw the aggro. But if you're using someone like the Wylder and you're playing with a Recluse, Duchess, Ionai, they're going to be shooting from afar and they are going to be constantly drawing the aggro, mostly because they're going to be able to put more damage out because they're not getting pressured. They're not in a position to get hit until the boss obviously starts chasing them. So they're able to put out a lot more damage because you, as a, you know, close range melee character, you have to be careful about what attacks you're doing against their, you know, the boss's attacks. So if you've got something like this, when you guard, you'll see the Shabriri's woe icon just under your health bar, and that will let you know that you're actually, the game is telling you that you are drawing the aggro. It doesn't always work because sometimes the Ionai's damage will just outdraw the aggro for sake of finding the better words, same as any other long range caster. So obviously sometimes it didn't work, but I managed to get that on a really good relic. So if you can fit it on and it works well with like physical attack power up or the Wylder's blood loss, then try and use it. And honestly, I'm still not 100% that it actually works how it's intended, but if you can fit it on with like the Wylder's blood loss or physical attack power up, it might just help you draw more aggro away from your teammates. Now, for actual numbers on the build, so the physical attack power +3, +4. +3 gives you an 8.5% damage boost, and the +4 gives you a 10% damage boost. Obviously, these stack multiplicatively like every other buff in Elden Ring Nightreign. So those paired with the Night Invader, which is a 7% damage boost, and then paired with the Evergel, as you can imagine, if you've already got free 10% boost from the physical attack power plus ups, and then you get your Night Invader mixed in with that and your Evergel, you know, you're going to be ending the run with like 70-80% damage boost. So yeah, that's pretty much the build covered. So essentially just Evergels, Night Invaders, the +1 for his grappling hook. If you can fit any of his personal relics on, fit them on because they will help a little bit, but they're not game changers in my opinion. And then the 3rd relic, if you've got space for it, just add extra vigor. As for tips for playing the Wylder, I mean, it's pretty basic stuff. Don't mash like a monkey. Don't run out of stamina because you will get blended, because once your stamina bar hits 0, it takes a lot longer to recover than it would if you, say, let it get to like 5% and then let it recover. So obviously that's a really important tip. Try and keep aggro for the enemies, so you know your teammates aren't in danger, especially if you've got squishy teammates like your Recluse, your Revenant, your Duchess, even your Ionai, because they're pretty squishy unless they're built for vigor with his new relics and stuff. Don't be afraid to use different weapons. The Wylder is the character that can use pretty much every melee weapon in the game. He is essentially a quality build. Obviously, he's mostly strength, but he has high strength, high dex, so you have the option to use any weapon you want in the game. So, you know, be versatile in that way. Don't hoard the grappling hook. If it's there, use it constantly. Keep pulling at the enemies. I think if you do 2 grappling hooks and an R2, you'll proc most of the successive attack stuff. Ultimate ability, don't hoard it. Use it. Get rid of the groups of enemies. Move on. It will make the run go quicker. Don't forget to use the grappling hook. 1, to pull you in closer to the enemy to do damage, but also use the grappling hook as a defensive move to get out of damage and get away and to make yourself some space. As for passives on the runs, you just want to be picking up damage negation and then like physical attack stuff, because that's really what you want to be doing. You want to be being able to tank hits if you need to, because you are going to be playing aggressively to draw the enemy aggro. So you want damage negation, that's a really important one. But also physical attack power, because each one of those buffs, they will stack, and you'll end up with an insane damage output just from using essentially his physical attacks. So yeah, gamers, that is pretty much the build that I use for Wylder. That is the build that I've used for Wylder from depth 1 all the way up to depth 5. It does work. It is very simple, very basic, but it is essentially a perfect build for him, because it's all you need. You don't need anything spectacular to make him an extra strong character. He is very well balanced. He has decent HP. He has very good strength, very good dex. His arcane's a little bit low. That could be buffed. But yeah, the Wylder is a perfectly balanced character, and he is a very important part of a meta team, in my opinion. If you want to see more unique builds for the Wylder, because I do have quite a few. I have a Faith one, I have an Affinity one, I have quite a few basically. If you would like to see something a little bit more unique for the Wylder, something a little bit more fun, let me know in the comments and I'll make one of those as well. But yeah, this is the Wylder build that I've used to get me from depth 1 to depth 5, and I did it in 14 days with randoms, FYI. And yeah, gamers, that is pretty much all I got to say. If you're still here, big love. You know how much I appreciate you still being here. Catch you on the next one. Stay safe. Big love. Peace.